Good morning again, everyone. It's great to be with you and to see so many of you here today. I think maybe you might be curious about karma, but hopefully you're more curious about discover the power within you. I've been focusing on that for the past, this is week 4, focusing on this book by Eric Butterworth. And I've said before, he's a powerful, he's still in the ethers because I'm reading him. He's very much alive for me, but he was the minister at Lincoln Center in New York City for many years. And in the book, there's a chapter called The Law of Compensation. It's not called the idea of compensation. It's not called the possibility of compensation. It's called the law of compensation. He's talking about a principle. We think of law as principle. Even though we know right now, I was thinking as I'm driving, there are a lot of things that we think of as laws that are being broken right now, right? But remember the difference between a law that's a spiritual law, that's a universal law, and a man-made law. And we're going to be looking a little bit more into that kind of distinction in our own lives as we discover the power within us, because that's really what our unity message is about pretty much every day. So I think many of you know I've spent quite a bit of time in India. I've been to India 17 times, started going 20 years ago, taking people to study in India, not as a travel guide. I've never been to the Taj Mahal. Basically, it's been an inner experience for me. And I remember in 2014 taking a class on karma. And out of that experience, I ended up creating a class here in the States called Your Karma Bank. And it was very much focused on the kind of teaching that they gave us in India about karma. And, I think we know this idea, or what goes about comes about. Thoughts that in mind we talk about produce after their kind, garbage in, garbage out. We kind of hear these things and we know these things. But the teaching they gave me in India was very, very precise in many ways. They talked about 5 different levels of karma, and they said that, based on the actions that we carry and the thoughts that we think, we either get one or of 2 different kinds of karma all the time. And one of them they would call sat karma, which is really good karma. That's when you're thinking good thoughts, you're doing something beneficial for the planet, for someone else. The other they call dush karma, which is not so good karma. Karma you get when you are carrying negative thoughts or when you're doing something that's harmful to another person or to yourself. And they talked about it like a bank, like you want to up your sat and lower your dush karma. You don't want to have it the other way around. And even balancing might not be the best thing for us. You want to just really increase this sat karma. And one of the things they told me, which kind of shocked me, was that we get karma from our ancestors, from our family, and we also get karma from the people that we're married to. And I was like, wow. And then I thought, well, I've been divorced from that karma, so I'm okay. And they went, no. You made an agreement. You took a vow, right? Well, the reason I thought it was kind of shaky for me was that my first husband's dad, whom I never knew, had committed suicide. Well, and that's not a really great karma to get, because you can think about all the things going on in somebody's life before they make a decision that they have to end it. There must have been a lot of difficulty and a lot of pain in that person's life. So I said, well, geez, what can I do about this? I remember sitting with my teacher in India, and she said, well, you can pray for this person who's crossed over, because of course in India they believe in reincarnation, and part of the whole issue with karma is that if we end up with some karma that's not so great, we get to come back and maybe try again. And that's why the whole idea of reincarnation is a big part of that tradition. So I prayed for my former husband's dad, whom I'd never met. And then it occurred to me that my former husband died very suddenly, unexpected. His wife tried to commit suicide. His third wife tried to commit suicide. Their daughter tried to commit suicide. I'm looking at these patterns and thinking, maybe there's something going on here in consciousness. But what I came to realize later, and especially after I've been kind of digging in this week, and last week as well as I was preparing for this message, is that we can think of karma as kind of a balancing of the scales, in the sense of, if we do something that hurts someone else, it's not like a boomerang. It's not like that person is going to be the one who's going to hurt us. It's just that somewhere in our life we're going to have an experience that may cause us a similar kind of pain. We can even think about it in terms of how we think about someone else. When we judge someone else, oftentimes what we're judging is actually what we're judging about ourselves. So there's this balancing out in terms of energetic flow, in terms of the give and the take in the universe. And it feels that sometimes for us, it feels like it is about punishment. It feels like if you don't do something right, you're going to be punished for it. And I don't know if anybody's ever thought about it like that, because we talk about this every Sunday. The things we think about, literally the state of consciousness that we're carrying, the feelings that we're carrying, are what produce the words we're going to speak in the moment and the actions we're going to take. And that whole package, the thoughts, the feelings, the state of consciousness, the words that we say or don't say, and the actions we take, all of that is energy that is being put out into the world. It's flowing out into the world. And at some level, it's going to come back to us. But if we look at karma in a different way, we look at this, what Jack Boland, who was another Unity minister, and Eric Butterworth say is this law of compensation, we can look at it rather as a feedback loop. It's like, okay, these are things that I've done in the past, but it's coming back to me as a feedback loop. And a feedback loop, if something is going along fine, we don't get any feedback, right? If things are going along fine, if you put your thing in your GPS and there's no traffic jam, there's no shift, there's no change. It's when things are a little off kilter that the feedback comes for us. And what's the feedback there for? It's there for us to bring awareness to the situation, bring awareness to our consciousness in the moment, and potentially it's there for us to learn something about ourselves, or maybe to learn something about another person. So looking at this idea of this law of compensation, not as a place of blame where we're going to blame someone or blame ourselves or take revenge because somebody did something to us or we did something and we need to, beat ourselves up for it, but rather as a way to give us feedback about what's going on, our thoughts or prayers. I mean, we've all heard this idea that worry is another form of prayer. And if you're carrying worry, what's the feedback you're going to get? What's the law of compensation going to give you on the other end? Something to worry about, right? Because you're putting out there this energy field, and it's going to come back to you. So if we look at this idea of karma, instead of what I was taught in India as this balancing thing, and of course it was all very much deeply embedded in their understanding of reincarnation. And just a little PS on that. Charles Fillmore talked about reincarnation. Charles Fillmore, who was one of the co-founders of the Unity movement, he talked about reincarnation. He talked about karma. But it's not something that we're publicly reading a lot about. You have to dig. I did some digging because I like to dig. And he talked about karma, and if anybody's interested, knowing a little bit more about this understanding of reincarnation and karma from a Unity perspective, Jack Boland was a very popular minister in Warren, Michigan, years ago. And he did a 5-part audio series on reincarnation and karma. And that was a place that I did a little digging to kind of see another perspective of how unity would understand karma. You know, we know this idea that with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. The idea, too, that whatever a person sows, they will reap. You plant your roses, you're going to get roses. You might get some weeds, too. And what's the feedback there? Maybe you didn't properly till the soil. Maybe there was something else in the soil that needed to grow. And we have that same kind of situation in our life, don't we? Something else needs to grow that we need to begin to take a look at. So the powerful thing about this is we can look at karma as feedback, but the teachings that we get from Jesus are very, very different. We're not looking at karma as a system of judgment, a system of law and judgment. We're looking at karma from a very different level of consciousness. We're looking at the law of compensation from a different level of consciousness. And again, be reminded, this book that we're focusing on is Discover the Power Within You. It's all about each one of us claiming the divinity within ourselves. That second thing on our statement. There's only one presence, one power active in my life, and it's in each one of us. And so part of what is going on here with this karmic cycle that's happening is that as we begin to deepen our awareness of the divine presence within us, or the Christ presence within us, meaning the pattern that Jesus showed. Jesus was not Mr. Christ. Jesus was a man who was a way shower or a teacher. You know, people today would call him a guru. A guru is a teacher, one who gives us lessons and in many cases shows us the way. Jesus was a way shower for us that carried and fully embodied this higher level of consciousness, this Christ consciousness, which was not based on the law of justice. That was the law of justice was what the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the Jewish priests at the time that Jesus was living, this is what they were all about. They were mad at Jesus because he was healing people on Sunday. Well, you're not allowed to heal people on Sunday. What kind of law is that? Is that a universal law, or is that a man-made law? Man-made law, absolutely. So just to get a little more perspective on this, Emily Cady, who's one of my favorite Unity teachers, she was a homeopath. She lived in the late 1800s, and she wrote a book that became kind of almost like a how-to for Unity. It was called Lessons in Truth. And one of the chapters in her book was called Personality and Individuality. And in this particular chapter, she helps us understand how we as human beings have these two different levels of not only consciousness, but how we show up in the world. When we say we carry the Christ light, the divine nature, that's our individuality. That's our complete connection to our spiritual nature. But most of us also have this personality thing going on, you know? And personality is that part of us that carries ego consciousness, that feels like it needs to protect itself, that maybe even thinks it's separate, whereas our individuality knows that we're connected to all life, right? You and I, we're all deeply connected in the same way that whatever I do or say or even think is going to come back in the universe in some way, maybe not directly connected to how I put it out there, but it's going to come back to me in some way for me to bring awareness to who I am and to the divinity within me. And I can have that awareness at the level of personality, in which case I might want to blame someone else, you know, I might want to justify myself for something that I did. But at the level of individuality, I'm able to rise above that right or wrong, good or bad, balancing of karma, and see things from a very different level, which is the level that our way shower Jesus taught not only the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and his disciples, but the people during his experience of walking on the earth. He came to teach this idea that it's not about justice, it's about love. It doesn't mean we are putting justice aside, but it's justice with love. Think about the story in the Bible of the woman who the Sadducees brought before Jesus because she had committed adultery. And that was in, the law of Moses, not good at all. So Jesus is there with, I'm going to read this because it's very powerful to just really understand what was going on. So each of them went home while Jesus went to the Mount of Olives, and he's often going up to the mountain. Again, that's a clue that it's taking us into higher consciousness. When we're going up to a mountaintop, we're going into another place of consciousness. So early in the morning, he came again to the temple, and all the people came to him, and he sat down and began to teach them. And the scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who'd been caught in adultery, and making her stand before all of them, they said to him, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the very act of committing adultery. Now in the law, Moses commanded us to stone such woman. Now what do you say?" They said thus to test him, so that they might have some charge to bring against him. And Jesus bent down, and he wrote with his finger on the ground. And when they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and he said to them, "Let anyone among you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." And once again he bent down and he wrote on the ground. And when they heard it, they went away one by one, beginning with the oldest. And Jesus was left alone with the woman standing before him. Jesus straightened up and said to the woman, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" And she said, "No one, sir." And Jesus said, "Neither do I. Go your way, and from now on, do not sin again." So that's just the perfect example of how we can move out of this field of even exchange that the Pharisees were calling forth, because what did they see? They'd done their own version of adultery, so they really had nothing. They were not without sin at all, that they could not condemn. So there really wasn't this right to revenge, in a sense, to the law of man. Jesus was calling on a higher law, the law of love. And what did he say? You're forgiven, because that was part of what Jesus brought to us, was about redemption and forgiveness, and that we can carry that in our hearts as well. He did also say, just don't do it again. He wasn't like, oh, go, That was not part of his, that wasn't part of his teaching. It was just without a punishment, without a sense of revenge. The same was true for other stories in the Bible. The story of the blind man was another one. And, I was thinking about the world we live in today, because we can talk about these things, and, I get excited about these teachings. Every time I go deeper into the teachings, I get excited to learn about this for my own awareness and what's going on in my own life. But I was thinking about the world we live in right now. I mean, we're living in a world where there's war, there's hatred, there's racism, there's a lot of, political division, there's a lot of deception. And if we look at karma, instead of a revenge and a justice system, but we look at it as feedback, what's it telling us? It's telling us where consciousness, collective consciousness, has been living for a long time. And being aware of that, we don't, in our awareness of our Christ consciousness and our higher awareness of consciousness, it doesn't mean that we're going to condone what's going on. That's in no way what Jesus would have done. He didn't do that with the woman who committed adultery at all either. Because if love has no justice, it's just kind of sentimentality, isn't it? But love actually comes, justice can come when we have love, and it can come without revenge added to it. So it's really important for us to see how this idea of justice can be there to restore what's been broken, but it has to be done from a place of love. And that's part of what I think we're all being called into right now, whether we call ourselves peacemakers, whatever it is that we choose as individuals to do in the world right now, to do it not from a place of revenge or blaming, but rather from that higher consciousness. We can make choices about what is ours to speak out, what is ours to do, what stands are ours to take from a very different place in consciousness. So I just wonder, if we look in our own life, if you just look right now, is there some area in your life where your life is giving you feedback? Is there something going on in your life where you're getting some feedback? And what might that be? I love this quote from Jack Boland. He's talking about how the things that we think about today are actually manifesting tomorrow. The things that we do today, the actions we take today, become our tomorrow. And he said very specifically, we can remember that our acts today are literally creating tomorrow's situations and conditions. Then with this exquisitely high knowledge, you can see that everything that you do or fail to do in the area of assuming your responsibilities, meaning what you respond to and how you respond to it, is determining your tomorrow. He says there is no future. There is only now, continuing to express itself when tomorrow arrives. That was just an interesting kind of thing to hold on to. There is no future. It's only now expressing itself until tomorrow arrives. So what is it in your life? Is there maybe a relationship that is giving you some feedback that you want to look at? Maybe it's something else about your the way that you hold your spiritual nature. How do you hold your Christ consciousness, your higher consciousness? You could carry it here. Can you carry it when you go to work? Can you carry it in your closest relationships? Or do you get pulled back into that personality place where you need to balance things out? You need to be right or make somebody else wrong. You play those games of the ego. Or can you hold things from a higher place of love? So Jack Boland said, which would you rather have, justice or mercy? Would you rather have justice, even exchange, or would you have mercy, which is that connection of divine love? So let's just take a moment now. I'm going to invite the ushers to close, turn the lights out, and invite you to close your eyes. So taking a deep breath and just gently closing your eyes or creating a soft gaze for yourself to create your own little inner world and sanctuary. I invite you to take a deep breath. And we know that life is principled and there is nothing wasted in the universe. No energy is wasted. Whether it's a thought we carry, whether it's a feeling that we have, whether it's a word we speak or an action that we take, every choice at all levels of our being matter for us. But Jesus Jesus revealed something even greater for us. Something even greater, that there's something within us that is inviting us into a new way of living, a new way of being in the world, a new way of making choices in the world, not from that place of the ego's personality, but rather from that higher realm of our individuality as spiritual beings having a human experience. And karma may tell us where we've been, but that divine nature within us, that Christ nature, reveals who we truly, truly are. It teaches us that every single moment in our life, love is available to us and moves through us. And every single moment is a new beginning, a new opportunity. So tuning in right now to this day, this Sunday, July 12th, is there a new beginning in your life? Perhaps a new thought that wants to be held in consciousness, a prayer that you want to hold about your own life, about your body, about your relationships, or a prayer about someone else that you hold dear. Is there some action that you're called to take, a choice to be made, a word to speak, or a silence to maintain? Just in the silence, settle with the Christ consciousness within and see the guidance that comes. Beyond the law, there is love. Our thoughts are prayers, and we are always praying. Our thoughts are prayers. Be careful what you're saying. Seek a higher consciousness, a state of peacefulness, and know that God, the presence, is always there. And every thought becomes a prayer. And so we give thanks for this understanding of the law of karma and beyond, the law of love, and for all the teachings that have come to us through Jesus as a way shower and through the many teachers who've come before us on this path from all spiritual traditions. Grace is flowing to and through us. Love is flowing to and through us. And all is well. And gently, as you're ready, I invite you to bring your awareness back into your physical body, feeling toes and fingers, and gently, as it feels right, begin to open your eyes and come back to our sanctuary, back to the community in love.